Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 5 of What If Naruto was in Street Fighter. If you guys enjoyed this what if, then comment, like and subscribe. Let's go. Also, the video goal is 10 likes. So, let me know that you're interested in the series and you want the next part. Then go ahead and check out the other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and also share the video with your friends and link in the description. So, let's go. Winter had a strange sort of comfort to it when one was sleeping. Cold mornings were turned into times when one was stuck underneath the warmth of their covers and sheets to avoid the bite of the open air, especially when one didn't particularly have heat like Naruto did. Hey, Hino Kuni back in the elemental nations always had pretty nice weather. It didn't really get cold there. Not like Japan, but in order to deal with the lack of heat, Naruto had developed a habit of deep sleeping. People that tried to awaken him by knocking on his door at this time of the year would often refer to this as his hibernation. Mostly because he slept like a rock beyond 8 hours or more at a time, and if you woke him up prematurely he would be very cranky for most of the morning afterward. Wake up, Naruto-san. Snore. Sigh. Wake up, Naruto-san. Aahhhh. The shout in Naruto's ear early in the morning shot him out of bed like a rocket as he stuck upside down to the ceiling of his bedroom, looking around with a crazed glint in his eye. You can't have the hat. It's mine, so fuck off. You'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands, you hear me? Go be a cage like I did if you want the damn thing, you wannabes. What on earth is a cage supposed to be? Is that something significant? Naruto's eyes focused and he looked down from his ceiling to find Karen looking up at him curiously with Shibazaki next to her, having flinched back from his sudden movement, and Ishizaki looking into the room from the doorway as Naruto's room was crowded enough with 3 people in it, let alone trying to fit his large mass in as well. What incredible misfortune. Naruto was having a fantastic dream only for it to be interrupted by the physical mortal embodiment of what he believed to be the devil in a red school uniform underneath a leather coat. What a fitting color for Karen to wear. It was far too early for this crap, at least he thought it was. He didn't know what time it just so happened to be actually. How the hell did you get into my house? Naruto asked, still sticking upside down to his ceiling. The door is triple locked, an added measure after Ibuki kept breaking into his place sometimes just for kicks. She could have just asked to come in, but she found it more fun to just fuck with him by tinkering and breaking through his security measures. Karen was not one to pick locks though, and he doubted that any of her 2 attendants could either. Karen smirked up at him with her hands on her hips in a superior manner. The landlord opened the door for me when you refused to wake up to my knocking. Of course he did. Naruto gave Karen a dry look to show that he wasn't particularly surprised about that. All that money and influence she had was definitely useful for inserting herself into any facet of his privacy that she saw fit to interject herself into. He accepted this though. Okay, next question. Why are you here? Upon hearing Naruto's second question, Karen's pretty face twisted into a frown as she continued to look up at him, her brow now twitching. I cannot believe that you forgot about today. Unbelievable. What's today? Naruto asked before noticing his state of dress, simply a pair of boxers. And Karen apparently had no shame when it came to looking right at him, like she didn't even care. He didn't know quite how to feel about that, embarrassed or insulted. Do you mind? Not really, she returned matter-of-factly. Karen had gone with him into a bathhouse full of nearly nude sumo wrestlers. If there was ever a time to be mortified by the male frame, that would have been the time, not while looking at Naruto in his home. Though admittedly, the sight of a half-naked Naruto did appeal to her more. Now go and get yourself ready for the day. We need to reach Tokyo by 2 in the afternoon to sign you in. Naruto gave her a clueless look that got her to roll her eyes before answering his unasked question. For the tournament. It was, or should I say is, today. What surprising news. So surprising that Naruto fell from the ceiling onto the center of his bed, breaking the box spring, and potentially his neck from the angle that he landed before depositing himself back first on his bed looking up at the ceiling. Ow. Okay, everybody get out so I can get dressed, after I figure out if I hurt my neck or not. If you injured yourself, you are still fighting, by the way, Karen informed him as she walked backwards out of the room, getting a lift of the arm and a thumbs up from Naruto for her comment. Oh, look. You can move your arms. At the very least you are not paralyzed. Now, chop chop. We have 7 hours to get you to Tokyo and signed in. Cool, I guess. Naruto said as he grabbed his orange fighting clothes and walked into his bathroom. Hey, can I bring somebody? XXX. Later that day, Tokyo, Japan. The ride in Karen's chopper was slightly more crowded for their trip back to Tokyo for the tournament. There was also more tension in there this time as well because the bulk of the trip had Karen and one of the people Naruto wanted to bring shooting glares at each other on and off throughout the flight. Yeah, he thought it would be nice to bring Sakura just in case Ryu showed up to this little tournament. He doubted that a big-time drifter fighter like Ryu would stop wandering and would return to Japan for a little open tournament, but it was the thought that counted. For the other two riders in the helicopter, Naruto and Batsu, the whole female feuding between Karen and Sakura stopped being funny 20 minutes into the trip and turned annoying from that point forward. Batsu offered that they just kiss and make up and get it over with. Naruto then had to make a human chain of cage bunshin to keep him from falling to his death after the girls threw him out. He had never seen them work together like that and it was honestly a little scary. Luckily no other incidents occurred during the flight and everyone arrived safe and sound, because not everyone would probably be leaving that way, i.e. Naruto. And now in an outdoor courtyard at the front entrance of an arena they were stuck in a pretty long line at least 60 deep to sign Naruto up for the tournament he had been directed to compete in at his benefactor's behest. Naruto let out a yawn and looked around trying to size everyone standing there up. He didn't particularly see anyone worthwhile. There were a few maybes, but in the end if there were any people of interest he didn't see them. Even Karen had gone somewhere to wait for him to sign up since she did not want to be stuck in a line full of commoners. But Sakura and Batsu stayed in line with him for whatever reason. Good people, to not leave him there all by himself in the crushingly boring set of circumstances he found himself in. A yawn slipped from Naruto's mouth and Sakura nudged him to make sure he wouldn't fall asleep on them. Why are you guys in line with me anyway? I'm fighting, Batsu said with a shrug. Getting a look of surprise from Naruto, there's no real reason not to. I'm here. I'm in the line anyway. It's not like I'm rusty or anything. I train with you all the time. It could be fun, and the money wasn't really anything for a kid in high school to sneeze at. It wasn't anything for anyone to sneeze at really. If I won, I could probably get mom a nice vacation or something. I'm in too. I want to see how much better I've been getting. And this is a great chance for it, Sakura interjected with quite a bit of spirited enthusiasm. It's kind of funny though, huh? I don't even know what kind of tournament setup this is, and I'm jumping right into it. What does that say about me? That made Naruto realize something else as well. Wait, Karen didn't tell me what kind of tournament this was either, other than the fact that it's open entry. Damn it. I told her about this kind of crap. Of course he had never really taken the initiative to ask her or look on the internet for the information himself, but he wasn't about to bring that point up. Batsu would have hit Naruto on the head, but doing that might have started a large-scale brawl amongst the testosterone-filled populace once Naruto retaliated in kind as he knew his friend would. Well, just find everything out once you get up there. Does it really matter? You fight and you either win or you lose. As long as that's the basis then who cares? I like to be prepared though, Naruto mumbled lowly. Taking the moment to pick on Naruto, Sakura patted down his supply pouches and pinched his cheek when he started growling at her for the indiscretion. Prepared. You look like you're prepared to fight a war instead of a tournament. Why did you bring weapons? I fight with tools, Naruto said as they nearly reached the front of the line, you know that. I've been throwing stuff at you since middle school. You complained less about it back then than you do now. Why try to use chakra when you could just stab somebody? That was the way he felt about it. I always tried to get you to stop using them though, Sakura replied, tightening her white headband around her forehead as she kept looking through the crowd, hoping to spot her inspiration for beginning her more intense training. But her attention was stuck on her close friend and his use of potentially lethal weapons. You don't need to use those things to win. We've seen that they can be beaten and they just kill unnecessarily sometimes. Naruto let out a loud groan for a topic he had probably been over more times than he cared to return to. They're part of the way I was trained to fight. No style is really better than any other, Sakura-chan, just different. I don't even use my good weapons on people I don't want, I mean have to kill anyway. You don't have to kill anyone, Naruto, Sakura said with a pout. Her chosen method of fighting was potentially very powerful, but she would have never tried to kill anyone. Naruto, from his way of speaking, had obviously killed people even if she had never seen or heard of it. The job he did kind of meant that at some point someone would have had to have died. She didn't like thinking about that. Naruto was not a killer as far as she was concerned. And again, it was a conversation he didn't want to have either, because it wasn't something he could make her understand. You just keep on thinking that for as long as possible. It wasn't something he wanted her to understand either. Killing and death were far more taboo in this world than in his own, even if certain amounts of violence were encouraged, like the kind of violence he was about to be engaged in. Upon reaching the small sign-up desk, Naruto gave the person behind it signing people in a smile and pointed to himself confidently. Uzumaki Naruto, signing up for the tournament. I'm ready to roll. Time to kick some ass and take some names, Datbayo. Fantastic, the very uninspired person doing the desk and paperwork replied as he began to have Naruto sign his name and other info down before passing another form forward that he was meant to sign. This is going to require your signature saying that any injuries, permanent disability, or potential fatality that you incurred during the C9 Grand Ace tournament is in no way the fault or the responsibility of any of the tournament's sponsors nor the C9 Corporation themselves, and that tournament competitors are not to be persecuted for the things that will happen to you and them. And that any actions taken and consequences occurred during the event are your own responsibility due to your own freedom of free will to be here or not. Compete at your own risk. Ooh goody, a release form. That sounded promising. Damn it, Naruto's entire job from the age of 6 and up should have come with a damn release form. Not that he could have really sued anyone or pressed charges in Konoha or anywhere in the elemental nations. It was a might makes right kind of world. Goodness, he missed not having to deal with all of that red tape. Rolling his eyes, Naruto signed his own name on the paper and passed it back, only for the man to ask another question: any next of kin or emergency contacts to notify in case of catastrophic injury. Naruto just pointed his thumb over his back at Sakura and Batsu. Just them, I guess. Oh, and Kanzuki Karen, if you know how to reach her too. She's around here somewhere, and I'm not giving out her contact info. He noticed the man's eyes go wide at the reference of Karen, and Naruto figured he shouldn't get used to the whole name dropping thing. It was a bad habit and he hated people like that. So, what now? The qualifying round. Follow this person to get to your match. Now. All three of the youngsters from Aohura City looked at each other before just deciding to go with it. Naruto followed a person in through the front door of the arena, through the halls, and into a secondary venue set aside for lesser events where there were apparently already some observers to watch the elimination process take place. Before they walked through the doors to enter, the man decided to pass along the rules to Naruto. Alright, so there's a 5-minute time limit for this fight. There won't be any time limits in the actual tournament, but we're trying to get the numbers down so if the fight goes all 5 minutes, both competitors are eliminated. Ways to win are by forcing your opponent to surrender, or by incapacitating them. We don't care how. No ring out? Naruto asked, knowing that these tournaments more than likely had rings or some kind of way to keep things under control. The man laughed and opened the door for Naruto to go through. What ring? And when Naruto looked through, he could indeed see no ring. Just a speculated area where fighters were supposed to do the fighting with metal guard rails to serve as some sort of formal barrier between the crowd and the combatants. The place was mostly dark in the crowd, with all of the lights being focused on what was meant to go on in the designated area for combat. Good luck, kid. Well, there was no time like the present to get it done, and Naruto walked out through the masses to stand inside of the ring by himself, punching his gloved hand into his other palm as he waited for his opponent. Huh. I guess you sign in on one side of the place or the other and they take you to this room to fight whoever signed in at the same time on the other side. Tricky way to pick elimination matches. After a while, the doors on the other side opened and a cavalcade of kabuki instruments began to play as his opponent walked through the crowd that was cleared for him. A man with white face paint and long red hair attached to a headband that seemed to have small horns in the front walked out adorned in ornate robes. Upon reaching the ring, he took the robes off, leaving him in baggy white pants, blue wristbands, and blue boots with yellow pads on the front. Streamers were being thrown from cheering fans as he broke into a pose after entering the fighting space. Dude, what the fuck? Naruto asked belligerently as the man in face paint began to stretch himself out and the crowd gave applause as the kabuki music continued to play. He gets a whole entrance. What about me? I had to walk in like some nobody. You are some nobody. Shut the fuck up. Naruto shouted back at the anonymous heckling audience member, getting several people near him to recoil at the angry-looking young man. I'm finding a way to get some damn entrance music next round. This isn't fair, he muttered to himself as the PA system came on to introduce the fight. Introducing first, from Aohura City just a few hours away, he stands 5 feet 8 inches tall, and weighs in at 154 pounds. The self-proclaimed, greatest ninja in the world, please welcome Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto stretched his legs out during his introduction and raised his hand over his head as light applause came from the people that didn't really seem to care that he was there. Okay, so his opponent must have been famous and he was just the other guy that he was meant to beat to advance. That pissed him off a bit. And his opponent, hailing from parts unknown. Naruto rolled his eyes at that while the fans just seemed to eat it up all the more. He stands 5 feet 9 inches tall, and weighs in at 194 pounds. Fresh off of his impressive performance in the CWA Crash Carnival World Tour, where he finished 3rd overall. This is the Great Oni. Upon the conclusion of the announcer's over-the-top introduction, the face-painted man shot some sort of green substance into the air from his mouth that dissipated in the air and caused raucous cheering from the crowd. All right, Naruto said to himself, not knowing what to say at that point. I don't know this guy, but who cares? Let's do this. You don't know him. One of the spectators closest to Naruto said in amazement, getting a hapless shake of the head from Naruto for his trouble. Man, he's like the best professional wrestler from Japan. Don't you have a TV? Once again, Naruto shook his head and kept bantering with the fan. I do, but TV's boring compared to the stuff I actually do. So he's one of those fake wrestlers then. That's cool, I guess. After uttering that, the whole place went silent and everyone stared at Naruto in abject shock to the point where it began to unnerve him. What did I do? He then saw the Great Oni glaring at him rather heatedly. More than one should be for a simple fight like this. What the hell are you mad about? You called him a fake wrestler, the fan from before pointed out as to why Oni was mad. So, wrestling is fake, isn't it? Naruto asked, like, people know who the winners and losers are supposed to be beforehand. That was what Naruto kept hearing whenever anyone brought up wrestling around him at least. He never really watched it himself even though he felt he probably would have liked all of the pageantry since he never really spent much time at home. And then people started booing him outright. Come on, what did I do now? The fan was holding the bridge of his nose and shaking his head at Naruto, who had incurred the wrath of the fight fans. Yeah, those are rumors. I don't know where you got that from. Oni walked forward, adjusting his wristbands on his arms before pointing at Naruto. I'll show you just how fake wrestling is, buoy. He finished, turning his voice upward in a kabuki-like manner. Preliminary round fight, begin. To start, Oni sprinted at Naruto, diving at him and missing when Naruto moved. Though Oni caught himself and did a direct upward handstand on the guard rail as he stared at Naruto from upside down. Expecting an attack of some sort, Naruto just stood back and watched him, only for the man to remain in the same position, not moving. Well, if he wasn't going to attack, then Naruto would do it himself. The speed of Naruto's rush surprised Oni to the extent that he pushed himself off of the rail into the air to try and circumvent Naruto's attack with a flying stomp. Naruto dodged and had to jump over a follow-up sweep from Oni before kicking him right in the chest, sending him sliding back along the ground into the metal rail. With a grin on his face, Naruto did his own little bit of posturing, creating a shadow clone and facing off with it before it threw a fake punch that barely tapped his face. Naruto sold it as if he had been shot and fell to the ground, unconscious, with his tongue hanging out. His clone quickly covered him and counted to 3 before dispelling. Poking fun at wrestling. Smooth. Angrily, Oni stood up looking as if he wanted to break Naruto's neck should he get a hand on him for his little act, and flipped onto the guard rail before launching off of it high into the air to crush Naruto with an outright splash. Playtime was officially over as Naruto knew he was coming and jumped to his feet to dodge. Oni saw Naruto dodge and turned his splash into a full roll in Naruto's direction that resulted in a rising mule kick to the face. Naruto got kicked back hard enough to knock over the metal guard rail and gamely spit out some blood before sitting up and seeing Oni charging him down. He then realized that this tournament had no rules and pulled another guard rail in front of his body before kicking it out at Oni, forcing him to stop his charge and stop the guard rail with his hands. Then Naruto walloped him over the top of the head with another heavy metal guard rail and Oni dropped like a stone. The crowd went silent as Naruto dropped the now useless guard rail down on top of the fallen Oni and nudged him with his foot, getting no response. Shrugging to himself, Naruto walked away through the crowd since his opponent seemed to be beaten and there wasn't any reason to hang around in there anymore. The winner and advancing to the main tournament, Uzumaki Naruto. That was a complete physical dissection, ladies and gentlemen. Not the cleanest win, but damn, if that ending wasn't ugly. Naruto heard the announcement as he reached the door and let a grin slip onto his face as he made his way out to find Batsu and Karen waiting there. Batsu had a bruise or two on his face but seemed to be mostly fine as well. Did you win your fight too? Batsu nodded with a smirk and bumped fists with Naruto over the pair advancing. Awesome. Where's Sakura-chan? There are only 2 auxiliary rooms aside from the main arena for preliminary fights to take place in. Karen pointed out with a bit of disappointment in her tone, this one and the other one on the other side of the building. Guess where I was while you were fighting your fight, Naruto-san. She sounded most displeased that she had selected the wrong room to wait on Naruto's fight. Slightly offended at his own match being overlooked, Batsu crossed his arms and turned away from Karen. Hey, my fight wasn't bad. I think for jumping in cold with 5 minutes after deciding I was actually going to do this I did pretty good. Next time, I'll fight even better. Be that as it may, it is still irrelevant. I have no stake in your performance exactly, Karen remarked. Good for you though, she said, getting Batsu to hang his head at getting overlooked. No, I came to make sure Naruto-san did not decide to slack off and lose this tournament. I expect nothing but victories. You have the skill. Yeah, whatever, Naruto said, cleaning out his ear and not really listening. It was just going to be the same old song he'd been hearing all fall and winter long anyway. You have to win to make me look good as your sponsor. Or perhaps, if you win that means I win. And if you lose, well just remember that I hate losing. Yawn. Threats only worked the first few times. Not after more than 20, come on, I want to go see Sakura-chan's fight, he started to say before the PA system cut him off after opening the doors back to the room again. Winner, and advancing to the main tournament, Kasagano Sakura. How about it folks? A 15-year-old schoolgirl from Aohura City and look at that skill. Who else is from Aohura City in this tournament? Wow, her fight must have been even easier. Able to see Sakura soaking in the cheers from the perverts that wanted to see her school uniform get torn in the matches, Naruto's eye twitched slightly at what the announcer had said. Ow, my pride. He then turned towards Karen. Why aren't you fighting again? Because I have you to fight for me. It's not the same. Never mind. Hold on a second, Naruto said before pushing and shoving his way through the crowd, throwing a few elbows to get the more rabid male fans out of the way. Move, get out of the way. Make a hole. Just trying to get to my friend here. Don't make me hit you. He reached the ring and heard some boos due to the fact that he had a Y chromosome before flipping the audience off and picking Sakura up over his shoulder in one move. A mortified Sakura looked at Naruto's back in surprise at the smooth lift, wondering what in the world he thought he was doing. Naruto, what are you doing? Naruto just gestured his head towards the crowd and the door, with the mass of humanity blocking the exit. If you think you can get through them without anyone trying to cop a feel, I'll put you back down and let you walk out yourself. Otherwise, I was just going to scare 'em all away. While she didn't want to be mean to the spectators that had just cheered her on to victory, Sakura took a good hard look at the lot of them and how their eyes weren't particularly leaving her, some of them grinning in a lecherous manner. Stupid school uniform. It seriously brought out the worst in men. Yeah, okay. Get me out of here, please. Alright. Hold your skirt down, Sakura-chan. Or don't, Naruto told her before he started jumping over and on top of the heads of fans as he reached the exit door and set her down, getting a hard punch on the shoulder for his skirt comment. At least he gave her a warning that he would have gotten an eyeful. Jiraiya wouldn't have said a word and would have had his eyes turned to the right to get as much of a panty shot as he could have before putting her down. Naruto was at least respectful of his best friend. So, we're all in. That's great, Batsu said, kind of fired up now that the preliminaries were over as far as they were concerned. No more scrubs to fight, and he hadn't gotten to fight all out in almost a year. Now what? Naruto gave him an, I don't know, look in return. Karen flicked Naruto on his ear, getting a cry of pain out of him before putting in her own thought. You could maybe go to the main arena where the tournament officials are putting together the brackets as we speak. As they have been since the moment I walked in the door. Just a thought, she said as she turned on her heel to head to the exact place she had been previously speaking of. Smartass, both Naruto and Batsu mumbled as they and Sakura followed Karen to the main arena to figure out how the entire tournament would be broken down. If she knew this much about the damn tournament, then why isn't she fighting? Naruto whispered to the others, getting a few snickers out of Sakura. What was that, Naruto-san? Did you just say to dock your wages for insubordination? I'm being good. Damn. XXX. 4 hours later, main arena. Apparently more people showed up to enter the tournament and eventually had to be turned away. Aside from that, the numerous fights that didn't have victors due to reaching the 5-minute time limit cut the tournament down extensively. So the kids from Ahura City and Karen's 2 butlers found seats while they waited for the actual tournament to begin. Batsu had left and returned with an exorbitant amount of food to eat since he had missed lunch. Karen simply sat in between Shibazaki and Ishizaki, who served as her buffers for the common folk, including the people she had come to the tournament with, and Naruto had been sleeping almost right from the moment he sat down. Sakura at first tried to stay active while waiting for the tournament to start, but the boredom was too much and eventually she fell asleep as well, using Naruto's shoulder as a pillow for some semblance of comfort. Karen spared a glance in Naruto and Sakura's direction and frowned at the sight of the two sleeping before choosing to address Batsu, who was steadily chowing down to keep his energy up for his soon-to-be fights. Ikimanji-san, she said, getting his attention while he was barreling through a bag of chips. Just why are Naruto-san and Sakura-san so close? Is it just the fighting? A part of Batsu didn't see why it mattered, but it was kind of apparent that Naruto and Sakura were closer than boys and girls usually were without having ever dated or anything of the like, and could see how it seemed curious to someone like Karen. How many normal friendships could she possibly have had if the stories of the Kanzuki family were as true as she made them seem? It was a question he could at least try to shed some light on. Well, Sakura was Naruto's friend years before he met me or anyone else that he'd even loosely call a friend. She's the first friend he had in Japan, actually. It's kind of a big deal to him. Why? Look at Naruto, Batsu said, pointing at his sleeping blonde friend before reaching at his eyelid and opening them to show Karen one blue eye that didn't seem to disturb his slumber. He's a total Yankee. Blonde, tan, blue eyes, well-built kid even back then. The complete stereotype, like he just jumped off of the screen of an American movie or something. That's not even adding in his whole attitude and all that get up and go he has whenever his ass is actually awake. He's sort of weird. A lot of people in this country don't like that the way they would in America, cultural differences. He just really doesn't fit in. Shibazaki let out a sneeze at that exact moment, turning away from the conversation at hand. See? Like that guy. I bet he hates Naruto hangs out with you. Karen sent a look Shibazaki's way that he didn't turn back around to meet, choosing to make himself look busy by adjusting his glasses and his suit. What exactly do his looks have to do with anything? Karen asked Batsu. He didn't have friends in Japan at first, sure. But now he has more than a few, doesn't he? It doesn't explain why he and she are so close. Yeah, it does, Batsu replied with his mouth full of food, taking a moment to swallow lest he choke while trying to speak. Loyalty, for one. He's like that with everybody. For another thing, she lives right around the corner, probably 2 or 3 blocks away. They would have stayed friends even if Sakura wasn't into fighting. It didn't hurt that she was though. It seems to be how he winds up making friends with everyone else. Really now? Karen said, sounding interested at that point, and how exactly does that work out? Win or lose, whichever side winds up on the short end of the fight, they would have some ill feelings toward the victor. So how did fighting get him friends? It got me as a friend, Batsu said with a shrug as he took a sip of a soda he had bought. We fought each other first before we were cool with each other. Then he helped me with some trouble going on around my school, and that's how it all started. That's kind of how it worked with you two, right? You've fought him before, haven't you? Karen took a moment before nodding. See. It's weird, isn't it? It's like when you finally hit him with your best shot, and he gets back up, you want to ask him how the hell he did it. And from there, it's kind of hard to hate the kid. Karen had to admit, that much rang true. Karen had initially wanted to despise Naruto when they had first met, but she had found it nearly impossible to do once she started coming across him regularly. Currently, she held what she liked to refer to as an indifferent tolerance for him, which was her closest way of saying in public that she considered him a friend. At that point, she noticed that Batsu had stopped eating for the moment and had moved in front of the sleeping Naruto and Sakura with his phone pointed in their direction. What do you think you're doing? Taking a picture of this to send so that me and Hinata can fuck with them both about this later, Batsu said as his phone made a shutter click sound effect to let him know that the picture was taken and stored in the memory of the device. Look at this, he said with a chuckle as he showed the shot to Karen. They look way too comfortable for where they are. After taking a moment to observe the real scene in the picture that had been taken of it, Karen pursed her lips before reaching at her foot to take off her shoe. They certainly do, don't they? She said before winging the shoe and hitting Naruto right in the corner of his forehead, stirring him from his leisurely slumber with a start as his body snapped to readiness and he looked around only to see Batsu holding back laughter and Karen smiling innocently while putting her shoe back on. Did you have a nice rest? I kind of did, actually, Naruto said, looking around to regain his bearings and stirring Sakura from her sleep as well as he rubbed the sore spot on his head. Hey, did a big bug fly into my head just now? Or a bat from the rafters? Something hit me hard. Don't know what to tell you, man, Batsu said, busying himself with finishing the rest of his food so that he didn't burst out laughing. Maybe Sakura headbutted you in her sleep. Oh, okay. The still reawakening Naruto and Sakura looked at each other and blinked once before Naruto's brain finally kicked on its logic portion, which was coincidentally the last system of his mind to turn on after waking up. Wait, Sakura-chan's on the wrong side. She couldn't have hit me from there. Which one of you assholes hit me? Maybe I hit you. What would you do about that kid? Upon hearing the gruff voice from behind them, Naruto stood up on his chair and turned around to face the person down. If you were in the tournament, I'd wait until we fought, then I'd stomp you. If you weren't, I'd find out if fighting would get me kicked out. Then I'd stomp you. He then realized that he was facing down a rather familiar face-painted sumo that he hadn't seen for months. Honda, are you here to kill me? The large, rotund sumo laughed deeply before patting Naruto on the head, not knowing his own strength as he got Naruto to sit back down with the motion. No, I'm not little one, he said, getting a pout out of Naruto for being called little one. I came to watch the tournament. He lifted both of his arms that were covered in soft casts. I may as well watch since I can't necessarily fight like this, can I? Sorry, Naruto said with a flinch at seeing that he was still injured from their fight a few months ago. He didn't really mean to do that much damage, but getting squashed by a 300-plus-pound man kind of warranted some overkill. Meh, no need to apologize for what was done in a fight, Honda said, dismissing Naruto's concern. The doctor says I'll be all healed up within 2 more weeks. I just couldn't get clearance from my stable soon enough to compete in this tournament. He looked around and saw Naruto's friends, but frowned when he realized Karen was with him and that Sakura was still way too close to him after waking up from their nap. Uzumaki, you really shouldn't be two-timing girls like this. What? Naruto said in confusion before Honda gestured his head towards Sakura and then at Karen, finally giving Naruto time to catch on. Are you kidding me? Didn't we go through this when I kicked your ass in the bathhouse? Karen's my boss, and she kind of hates me, and this is Sakura-chan. She's my friend from home and she's in the tournament too. Sakura waved to Honda after being introduced as Naruto, then pointed at Batsu, and this is my buddy Batsu, and I'm gonna kick his ass if we end up fighting. Batsu flipped Naruto off with his finger right in front of Naruto's face in response, pulling it back when Naruto bit at it, fully intending to snap the digit off entirely. Ah, you bastard. I'm gonna knock your teeth out when it's finally time. The two butted heads, pushing back and forth as they seemed to be just a hair under coming to blows in the stands. Honda looked over the lot of them and saw that they were all so young. There wasn't going to be anyone else getting involved in the tournament that would be their ages, and if what he saw and felt from Naruto during their fight was any indication, it would be a very impressive showing to say the very least. Thinking that put a grin on his face. I'm looking forward to seeing just what you kids have to offer in the ring. At that point, the main lights went out in the now pretty much filled arena and the lights down in the fighting area took precedence with a large board on the screen hanging above the ring where the names set to fight in the first round were set. Apparently the lineup had been worked down to 16 fighters, which was good with everyone from Ahura City. It was Saturday and they all had to skip for one day just to show up there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the C9 Corporation Grand Ace Fighting Tournament. Over the course of this one evening we will crown a tournament champion. The winner will receive 5 million yen for their efforts. It's winner takes all, and you are all here to bear witness to this great event. Finally, Karen said, speaking only loud enough for the others to hear as the crowd began to cheer at the sight of all of the strobe and colored lights waving all over the place. I thought they were never going to begin, the way things were going, as Honda took a seat in the row behind the place that the party from Ahura City had taken up. Karen turned towards Naruto. Remember, Naruto-san. I do not care who you wind up competing against. I want nothing less than victory. I'll beat whoever you want, Naruto said in an exasperated tone of voice. Just stop saying that already. I get the point. I'll kick ass until my legs are broke, don't worry. That is all I ask of you, Karen said, sitting in her chair with an air of satisfaction around her. Easy no. Naruto rolled his eyes, but her message was received loud and clear just as it had been for months. For our first matchup tonight we have first and foremost a young girl from Ahura City. A 15-year-old fighter and a high school student to boot. Please welcome Kasagano Sakura. Upon hearing her name called, Sakura felt her heart jump up in her chest a little bit and smiled before giving Naruto a hug for mutual luck as she got up to head down the stairs to the open floor to fight. And once again the cute schoolgirl factor got her a massive amount of cheers once she jumped over the black barricade that encompassed a massive amount of the floor for a larger, more secure fighting ring. Hey, come on and introduce me already. It's dark down here. A loud, boisterous voice shouted, drawing attention to a darkened stage at the end of the arena. Upon hearing that voice, up in the stands, Naruto palmed his face hard and hoped that it was just some random guy with a very obnoxious, to Naruto at least, voice. Oh, God no, please not him. You've got to be kidding me. Why is he here? The announcer cleared his throat before introducing the person that had shouted for him to do so, and her opponent. On his campaign to show the full power of the Psycho Ryu fighting style, of which he is the creator and the master. Everyone, please welcome the dangerous, incomparable, Hibiki Dan. The lights at the darkened stage flashed on as loud, blaring techno music began to play. A platform rose up on the stage to reveal a kneeling figure covered in a cape, and when they rose and threw it off, it was of course Dan in his usual pink fighting gi as he pointed at the ring and ran right towards it, flipping over the barrier and landing before playing to the crowd that seemed to be loving the pomp. Sakura watched the entire scene with a deadpan look on her face as Dan ran circles around the ring, making an ass of himself as far as she was concerned. This is the guy that Naruto beat right after school started up for the new semester, the one with the wimpy Hadoken. Dan's ears picked up Sakura's comment and he turned towards her, pointing boisterously at her. That's a different move. Mine is the Godoken. Get it straight, little schoolgirl. It was the same move, just his sucked. But that wasn't really important at the moment to Sakura. Careful now, she said with a smirk as she stood in her fighting stance ready to wipe this guy out. You might hurt yourself trying to take on this, little schoolgirl. Ha, Dan said, rubbing his nose smugly. You don't have a chance, sweetie. I haven't lost a fight in years. You lost a fight 6 months ago to my best friend, Sakura responded as if she couldn't believe the ego on this guy. What a blatant lie, right to her face. I was there in Ahura City when Naruto beat the pink off your gi. A fluke. Put an asterisk by that line in the record books. Having that little spot on his record brought up was obviously a sore spot to Dan from his stomping vehemently on the concrete floor. I had a stomach virus when I fought that Uzumaki kid. But no one ever talks about that. And you're his friend. How'd a rabid dog like that get a cute girl like you to spend time with him? Rabid dog. Naruto's a total teddy bear when he's not all fired up. Sakura said with her hands on her hips, standing up out of her stance, and if you want to talk down to my friend, you can do it after you beat me, if you're man enough, she finished with a bit of a taunt. Chuckling to himself, Dan decided that enough was enough and it was time to give the people a show. Oh, don't tug on Superman's cape. Bad things happen when you do that. You're going down, he shouted as he got into his own fighting stance and saw Sakura get into her own that looked like his, only her legs were further apart and her hands were set tighter than his to react to whatever she needed. Wait, that looks a lot like my stance. Ah, so you're an aspiring student wishing to learn from me, are you? And just like that, Sakura felt like puking at the mere thought. No way. That's not supposed to be based off of anything you did. It's supposed to be based off of Ryu's. It's not my fault you use your own versions of his moves. Did you study under the same master at one time or something? Bah, she didn't care. She could see why Naruto didn't particularly care for recalling his one and only meeting in the past with Dan. If he was able to get her this flustered, then what was Naruto feeling like by the time their fight began? Whatever, the quickest way to shut Dan up would clearly be to render him unconscious. Wow, Sakura was starting to think like Naruto. There was something wrong with that. But she seemed to be okay with that as she attacked Dan head-on with a direct punch that Dan stepped aside narrowly, catching a spinning backfist on the rebound that smashed him in the nose and sent him stumbling back holding the now bloody appendage. Ow. Damn it, why is it always the nose? He said, his voice muffled by his hand as he managed to dodge Sakura's follow-up attempts to strike him again. If there was one thing Dan knew how to do, it was take a punch and dodge them as well. Sakura had to take a few steps back to stay out of the way of some return kicks from Dan and some punches from his hand that did not have a firm grip on his nose to keep the blood from freely spilling out. Having seen Naruto fight Dan months ago, it was in her best interest to remember that Dan had solid basics and she was fully susceptible to being caught with a surprise move. Getting his confidence to rise at getting Sakura to step back on the defensive, Dan decided that it was time to step it up now that he was sufficiently warmed up. Koryuken. Dan attempted a jumping uppercut with a slight rotation, but Sakura wasn't fool enough to stand in the way as Dan got substantial hang time with the attack. Hey, you were supposed to try and counter that somehow. Right before Dan landed, Sakura charged forward, getting a running start to meet him on the ground where she unleashed her own jumping uppercut with a more authoritative spin behind it. Shouken. The uppercut landed right underneath Dan's chin and popped him up into the air to land flat on his back. Ha, got you right out of the air with that one. Dan rolled backwards from his place flat on his back and back up to his feet glaring at Sakura. That was another one of my moves. How'd you learn this stuff? I got a bit of training from Ryu, Sakura said with a smile, so those moves are kind of knockoffs of his techniques, but they work for what I need them for. It was kind of disconcerting to Dan that a girl that had to be around 10 years younger than him had gotten such skill with techniques the likes of which he trained with for years only to get kicked out before mastering. She hadn't mastered the moves either, but she had polished them up enough to fit her well to the point where it was difficult to tell that her technique was imperfect. You could have been trained by Guken himself, but you won't beat me. Dan said before rushing right at Sakura, shrieking almost like a girl as he charged her and the two engaged in more direct combat. Sakura blocked his first punch and blocked an attempted leg kick by tactically swatting Dan's kicking foot away with her non-targeted one. Not giving up, Dan attempted two cross punches only to miss and get knocked back with a double-fisted punch to the chest. Hadoken, surge fist. Sakura unleashed a quick burst of her shorter than normal range Hadoken and watched in a bit of satisfaction as it connected and knocked Dan back, sending him rolling away like a ragdoll. And that's how you finish a fight. That was indeed not how one finished a fight, because Dan was not finished. He stood back up, albeit shakily, not willing to lose so easily in front of so many. He was Hibiki Dan. He beat Sagat, and that meant something, damn it. Hey! Dan shouted at Sakura, getting her attention before she could exit outside of the barricades. I'm not out of this yet. It's time for my best move. The Shinkuu Gadoken, shaking sky self-taught fist. Dan built up an incredible amount of ki before unleashing a massive one-armed distance blast of his Gadoken. And much to Sakura's surprise and chagrin, it didn't merely dissipate after moving only 5 feet max. It went further and was locked onto her. The speed it was moving and its size wasn't going to give her a chance to move, so she did the best thing she could and covered up in preparation for the blast to hit. She had shut her eyes, but after a few moments nothing had happened. No pain, no nothing. Epic fail. After hearing a doubly taunting shout from the stands from both Naruto and Batsu, who were visibly laughing their asses off from their seats, Sakura opened her eyes to see that the Shinku Ugadoken had still dissipated before hitting her despite its improved range. Dan was completely beside himself, of all the lucky, copout B.S. technicalities. He shouted seemingly to the heavens, "Why, God? Why? Why couldn't you give me 5 more feet of range, just this once? Why?" He wailed to the rafters of the arena, dropping to his knees with tears pouring from his eyes. With Dan wide open due to his own dramatics, Sakura charged him down intent on ending the fight right then and there. After getting close enough, Sakura hit him with a short jumping uppercut that popped him slightly into the air. She followed up with a second jumping uppercut that knocked him higher and finished with a third spinning jump uppercut that had her ki charged behind it, midair Sakura tumultuous cherry blossom. She cocked back her second previously unused fist with everything she had while in midair with Dan to drill him with one finishing punch that sent him flying well over the barricade and into the crowd. Sakura landed on the ground and looked into the crowd where they scattered and let Dan smash into and bust up a few seats as he lay there motionless with a completely look on his busted up face. Seeing that the fight was officially over, Sakura grinned widely and threw her hand into the air energetically despite the energy she used to make sure she'd finish Dan off then and there. She'd get it all back quickly within a few moments of sitting back down. "Yeah. I'm not getting stopped tonight until I win the whole thing." The winner of her first round match and advancing to the quarterfinals, Kasugano Sakura. Still fired up from the fight and the win, Sakura ran up the stairs, getting past the other spectators to return to her seat where her friends were, jumping at Naruto with a big hug that forced him to stand up and catch her, almost losing his balance, but he still managed to get caught up in her good mood. "You kicked the crap out of that blowhard," Naruto said, putting a hand on the top of Sakura's short brown hair. "That was awesome. I knew you were getting better." Karen smirked as she remained seated in her own chair, having just watched her rival have quite a bit of success. Granted, Hibiki Dan wasn't really a banner victory for anyone decent, but the majority of the people watching didn't really know that, and mass perception was a major deal when it came to being a well-known fighter. "Well done, Sakura-san," Karen said. "Maybe the next time we fight I can actually get some satisfaction out of my victory over you." Sakura turned around and pulled her eyelid down at the blonde heiress. "Says the girl that isn't even fighting tonight. You probably just thought that I'd beat the skirt off of you, again." Almost rising to the challenge on the spot, Karen recomposed herself, remembering the reason for the season, so to speak. There's no need to fight you here. I have a representative in Naruto-san to do my fighting for me in this tournament. If you two are to fight, he will handle you accordingly. Of that I have no doubt." She still doesn't get the point of all of this, both Naruto and Sakura thought as the next fight was going on while they conversed. And Sakura gave Naruto a look that was labeling him as an enabler. In return he just shrugged back at her with an expression that said all he needed to say on the matter: "She pays." Batsu, though, had no reservations about speaking aloud due to the fact that he himself had never brought the topic forward in Karen's presence. "Having a representative do all of the legwork for you isn't the same thing as doing it yourself, even if you get the same result," he said as another fight began, despite the fact that none of them were paying attention to continue hashing out their own dynamic. How would having Naruto beat Sakura solve anything? You wouldn't be the one doing it. Shaking her head, Karen merely chose to instead pay attention to the fighting down in the ring. It was quite obvious that these people had no understanding of the intrinsic worth that a representative had. Naruto's victory was the success of his benefactor, her, and his defeat was the failure of his benefactor as well. She was tired of explaining that to people. Freaking brat, Batsu thought to himself as Karen was apparently ignoring the lot of them as Ishizaki served her a drink. Whatever, if Naruto was going to work for someone like that, it was his problem. It shouldn't have grated on him personally. But it resonated with Naruto. This was like the whole Konohamaru complex, only Karen accepted it and ran with it. Naruto walked directly in front of her and stood there until she made eye contact with him. "I like the money you're paying me for all of this and everything, but you've got to figure this out, Karen. There's something more important than winning. Maybe you can show me what that is sometime," she responded with a slight sarcasm in the inflection of her words. Naruto was usually a pretty idealistic guy, so he obviously believed what he was saying. She couldn't see it though. She had to be successful at everything she did no matter what, she had no other option. Her father watched her every endeavor, just waiting for an excuse to not award his fortune to his daughter. To find some kind of fault or weakness with her, excuse me, if nothing short of indisputable victory is acceptable to my family. That sounded like she was madder than she wished to let on, but it was okay to Naruto. He was more or less hinting to her that she was ignorant about something that was right in front of them. No one liked to hear that, he knew that he never did and still didn't. Okay, I will show you, Naruto said with a confident grin. I'll show you just what's more important than just winning anything you do. Winning's important, but without the other thing, it doesn't really matter. Because if you don't have what I'm talking about, you'll just lose when things get tough. A winner is a winner, Karen said resolutely. If you are a born winner, then it does not matter if one has what you speak of or not. The following contest is the next first round matchup in the C9 Grand Ace Fighting Tournament. Introducing first, from Aohura City, 17 years old and clearly skilled enough to be here tonight by virtue of his victory earlier in the preliminary matches, Ikemonji Batsu. Batsu sighed and pulled a pair of red fingerless gloves onto his hands as he walked out of the row and down the stairs to the open space on the concrete floor. Upon being announced as the participant in the next match, well, here goes me. But feel free to keep on arguing, he said to the others as he waved over his back at them. I'll just win this whole thing while you all keep it. And his opponent, from Las Vegas, Nevada. All the way from the United States of America. He is the former heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Balrog. The jaw of Batsu dropped as from the other side of the arena came a very tall and muscular black man wearing blue boxing trunks with white trim, and a torn white short-sleeve shirt underneath a blue tank top. He wore red boxing shoes on his feet and red boxing gloves on his hands with his hair fixed in thick cornrows. You've got to be kidding me, Batsu said, palming his face as this turn of events, the champ. What the hell is someone like Balrog doing here? XXX. In the stands. Oh, this is not good for Ikemonji-san. Karen remarked, an intrigued look on her face as she was now watching with interest. What would a boxing champion from America be doing here in Japan for this tournament? It isn't even that prestigious an event. So, this guy is supposed to be good? Naruto asked. He knew that to be a champion this man had to be skilled. But Naruto's belief in his friend's own skill was strong. Titles didn't mean anything as far as he was concerned, meh. Batsu can beat him. A frown adorned Sakura's face as she put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I'm not really too sure about that, Naruto. The only reason Balrog lost his title was because he was banned from boxing. He kept permanently injuring his opponents, and even killed one before in the ring. He could kill Batsu if he hit him clean enough. That was bad news, because Batsu wasn't exactly the most elusive fighter. He was an acrobatic brawler at his core, and against someone that could kill him with a good enough shot that simply wasn't going to fly for him. I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just saying, Sakura continued, he's really got to protect himself out there, or this could get bad in a hurry. I'm worried. At that moment a large hand was placed on her shoulder from behind, getting her to turn and see that it was Honda. Have some confidence in your friend, the injured sumo said with a smile. Anything can happen in a fight, and even though it's fine, be worried, don't undermine his efforts by refusing to believe in him. He was personally very excited to see just what the other fighting friend of the boy that had defeated him was capable of. XXX. In the ring, Batsu vs. Balrog. Batsu took the moments before the fight mentally going over his recent actions in the previous days and weeks, trying to find what he had done wrong to cause such karmic backlash against him. Meanwhile, Balrog seemed to be smirking and licking his chops at the good fortune of fighting a kid. Oh yeah. Time to get paid. This little tournament's gonna get me a nice payday. 5 million, can't wait. That's a fortune. Upon hearing Balrog's comment to himself in English, Batsu felt the need to comment on his to-be opponent's lack of understanding of the currency exchange rate since he understood the language. Hey. 5 million yen isn't really that much money, dude. Balrog stopped imagining all the money he would be swimming in after whipping these nobodies and started paying rapt attention to Batsu. What? Yeah, Batsu said, a shiver going down his spine at the slight glare coming his way from the dangerous boxer. 5 million yen rounds out to like $60,000 US, or something like that. It's not that much money the way it sounds if it was $5 million. $60,000. That was chump change as far as Balrog was concerned. And he entered a tournament in his spare time for that. Absolutely inconceivable, damn it. Why didn't anyone tell me that? Because it wasn't anyone else's problem but his. And he looked like he was about to take it out on Batsu just for being the one to break the news to him. Maybe knocking out your teeth will make me feel better about this, runt. Part of Batsu told him to back down. To just walk away, concede the issue, and sit down in the stands before he got himself hurt. It was a very small part of him and its opinion meant nothing in the face of the overwhelming portion of Batsu that did not like being talked down to and challenged by anyone. Oh yeah, well, maybe if I hit you in the head enough, your stupid ass will actually learn how to count currency. Batsu replied to Balrog's threat heatedly before feigning an epiphany. Oh wait, that's probably what's wrong with you in the first place, you punch-drunk punk bitch. Thank you American TV and movies for assisting with the formation of that insult in English. Quote. Yeah, you're dead, kid. Balrog said as he put his hands up and angrily began stalking towards Batsu to punch some manners into the boy. Didn't he know who he was dealing with there? Because if he didn't he was damn sure about to learn. Too bad Batsu wasn't in the mood to be taught anything by anyone's fists at the moment. And he wasn't about to let the boxer get close enough to try. Batsu held out his left fist before punching it with his other hand to release a wild energy blast that went flying at Balrog, Kiiden Guts bullet. Balrog narrowed his eyes at the attack and scoffed, dashing forward with one large striding step and punching the projectile attack head-on, sending it flying away from him and into the crowd where people had to scatter to avoid being hit with it. You ain't keeping me away with little light tricks. XXX. In the stands, Sakura's jaw was dropped at seeing someone deflect a ki blast with a punch. How is that even possible? Naruto's teeth clicked irritably as he continued to watch the fight below. Batsu's Kiiden isn't like a Hadoken, or even like my Spitfire move. When it's done right it's tightly compressed, a bit like my Rasengan. When it hits something solid it doesn't just burst like our attacks do, it keeps going until it runs out of energy and gets weaker the further it goes. You can knock it away if you can hit it harder than it's moving. Karen could understand the explanation. The Kiiden's strength and distance relied on momentum generated by the ki needed to form it and would never be stronger than the moment it left Batsu's hands. The further it went the weaker it would get, and it wouldn't explode the way a more volatile attack could. There was no doubt that Balrog had incredible physical strength, and if there were anyone in the tournament with the power to knock away Batsu's Kiiden at will it would have to be him. So his only distance attack wouldn't give him any kind of advantage as long as he didn't have an angle on Balrog. It was worse for Batsu than they had originally speculated. XXX. In the ring, Batsu vs. Balrog. As Balrog moved closer, Batsu kept trying to hit him with a Kiiden to no success as Balrog kept on punching them away before finally reaching Batsu. The boxer started swinging away with hooks and crosses that Batsu desperately ducked and swayed out of the way of lest his head wind up in the fifth row. He couldn't backstep his way back out of Balrog's range however. The man had incredible footwork to keep up with the backpedaling Batsu who tried to respond with a high kick, only for Balrog to block it and shrug it off, shoving his shoulder into Batsu's entire body and knocking him back into the ground. Balrog grinned and rushed towards Batsu in a sudden burst of speed as he rolled through the shove and got back to his feet, placing one gloved hand on Batsu's back to pull him in and having the other one cocked back to deliver an uppercut, dash low smash, runt. Batsu felt as if Balrog had punched a hole right through his torso as he had been lifted off of his feet, hanging in the air on Balrog's fist, spittle trailing from his open mouth as he desperately tried to suck in as much air as he could. Pulling his hand back, Balrog let Batsu fall to the ground, but he landed back on his feet, stumbling backwards as he held his stomach. That punch had to have broken some ribs. Come on now, you're no fun. I don't even have any of your blood on my gloves yet. Batsu stopped stumbling around Balrog and stepped towards him before uncorking a return uppercut of his own, fueled with his ki to turn his punching arm red. Balrog got a guard up and blocked it, but it sent him stepping back this time, recoiling at the surprising force that Batsu generated. That little punk had some ridiculous raw strength for someone his size. Mikazuki Karo Crescent Moon Kick. A driving kick from Batsu smashed into Balrog's guard once again, surprising the fighter as it seemed like Batsu was fighting more viciously now that he was injured. It was like dealing with some kind of berserker as after the kick, Batsu began pounding away on the boxer's guard with punches, a few actually getting through to hit him on the sides of his body. It was pissing him off because the punches actually really hurt, and he was hitting him around his guard the way a boxer would. Balrog always hated the pipsqueaks that would pepper his body when he was guarding his head, but he had a little something for that. It wasn't exactly legal in the boxing ring, but this was a fight without rules. "I'll pulverize you, dirty bull." Balrog grabbed the attacking Batsu's shoulders to hold him in place before delivering a pair of headbutts right to the face that stopped his offense. He stomped harshly on the stunned Batsu's foot and cocked his arm back for what looked like a punch, only for him to smash Batsu in the face with his elbow. The only thing that kept Batsu from doing a full 180 and falling to the ground on his face, spinning like a top, was the fact that Balrog still had his foot pinned underneath his own. He did fall to one knee though, with Balrog's foot being the only thing keeping him even partly upright as the man laughed at the damage he had just inflicted. There was nothing technical or pretty about how Balrog had just pummeled Batsu. He hadn't done anything that remotely looked like boxing, and it looked like he had beaten Batsu unconscious were it not for the fact that he could feel that Batsu had a weak grip on his boxing shorts. "Are you still trying this?" Balrog said before putting a hand on his head to laugh down at Batsu in disbelief. "Since when do kids like getting beaten up so much? You're better than the best punching bag money can buy, you know that." He continued to laugh, reaching down to grab Batsu's collar only to stop when the sound of a quite solid thud echoed out through the arena. In the middle of a laugh, Balrog's voice shot up to a squeaky high pitch and his knees began to shake because Batsu had just punched him directly in the testicles with the hardest uppercut he had ever been hit with, cup or not. The thud was the sound of the cup cracking. Balrog gently held his groin area and slowly shuffled away from Batsu, hunched over in pain as he did so and spouting threats in the highest falsetto possible as he tried to walk it off. Meanwhile, Batsu stood back up, his face all sorts of bloody, but with an angry sneer on his face. "No rules, right?" Not waiting for any sort of response, Batsu charged Balrog down and delivered a punishing uppercut that knocked Balrog into the air as he began to channel all of his ki as he held his left hand out in front of himself. "Now block this. Neketsu Zenkai Kiiden, burning super guts bullet." The punch that let the guts bullet loose was so intense that Batsu left the ground to get the force needed to make it work. A blazing red massive ball of unstably compressed ki flew through the air wildly before rising up above the falling Balrog and slamming him into the ground with an explosion. Balrog's body, propelled even harder by Batsu's super-powered Kiiden, left an indentation in the ground where he lay face down. Smoke wafted up from his body as burns permeated his motionless frame and the crowd let up a cheer at the come from behind victory. It's completely improbable, folks. The former world heavyweight boxing champion Balrog has just been defeated by 17-year-old Ikemonji Batsu. Give it up for the winner. This announcement and the pure shock value of the incident did nothing to really help Batsu on his way back to his friends as enthusiastic fans gave him hearty pats on the back all the way up the stairs. Pure murder on his broken ribs. Upon reaching his row of seats where everyone had been sitting, instead of sitting back in his chair and allowing the others to congratulate him and whatnot, Batsu lay down on the floor on his back, letting out a few grunts of pain in the process. Naruto, Sakura, and Karen just stared at him blankly until Karen motioned for Ishizaki. "Ishizaki, please bandage Ikemonji-san's ribs and provide him with some painkillers." XXX. Elsewhere in the arena, an extremely handsome man in a very expensive-looking suit sat in his seat, surrounded by beautiful women as the entire row he was sitting in, as well as the row in front of and behind him were all clear. The man had long light brown hair kept in one single long braid down his back and blue eyes that seemed to be amused as he shook his head at the sight of Balrog being carted off. "Idiot." The man said about Balrog, "I'm not his babysitter, so it's not my problem, but he'd better hope that Bison doesn't care if he makes an ass of himself or not." He held out his hand as a glass was placed into it by one of the women and another filled it with wine. "Vega, are you enjoying the show so far?" one of them asked him, seemingly fawning over his good looks. Sparing the woman half a glass before taking a sip of his beverage, Vega let off a scoff as if it was not worth his time to comment, "This show is worthless to me." He thought to himself instead of openly voicing it, "I'm looking for talent. For someone to maybe recruit, but it's all been ho-hum. The boy that defeated Balrog couldn't duplicate that feat in a million years. And everyone here is so unflatteringly unattractive. It's repulsing." Vega himself could have entered this tournament firsthand to really find if there was anyone worth recruiting, but it would have been a waste of his time as far as he was concerned. A small-time tournament like this would pose him no challenge, and all he would have done would have been to work himself up for nothing. But it was so boring. These fights were ugly and had little flair to them, with a minor exception of the first match. With the girl that was pretty cute, not nearly as beautiful as himself of course, that the crowd seemed to love. Where was the flash? Where was the showmanship? Did these people have no sense of style? As the tournament continued on after Balrog's loss, Vega was getting more and more irritated. Until he saw something that put a little glimmer of hope into his eye. The winner of his first round bout and advancing to the next round, Uzumaki Naruto. "I'd better get some goddamn theme music next time if you gave that jackass Dan a whole entrance with pyro and lights." Naruto's loud and irritated voice shouted over the cheers of the crowd. As his beaten and thoroughly trounced opponent was taken away by doctors, Naruto jumped up on the barricade and played to the fans, "Best ninja in the world, Datbayo. I don't need a clan, 'cause I'm the man." Well, this was certainly intriguing. A ninja, was he? That was interesting to Vega for his own reasons first and foremost. The way he seemed to handle his opponent as if he himself had been bored with it told quite the story to Vega. He had a flair for the dramatic, or at least was rather boisterous, and unlike that loser Hibiki Dan, he seemed to be able to back that up with action. To say the least, Vega liked what he had seen. He just needed to see a little something more before he decided to make an offer. "I think Bison might be pleased with this one." It was down to the semi-finals, as Naruto's two fights in both the first round and quarter-finals were total tomato cans as far as he was concerned. He didn't even need to use a clone to win. Batsu's second opponent in the quarter-finals had been infinitely easier to defeat than Balrog had been, especially since the fool thought that Batsu would be easy pickings due to his injury. It took him less than a minute to polish off the competition and lay back down on the ground in his friend's row of seats. Sakura's quarterfinal opponent met a very unpleasant end to his tournament run when she realized that he kept forcing her to throw high kicks so that he could try looking up her skirt. Seriously, that damn uniform she wore brought out the pigheadedness in men for some reason. She then proceeded to introduce his face to her fist and then to the barricade until he screamed for her to quit beating on him, which she did, albeit reluctantly. In the semi-final round, it would be Sakura against Batsu, and then Naruto would do battle with his own opponent for the chance to meet one of his friends in the finals. Is 5 million yen really worth this? Batsu asked aloud as he sat shirtless with Ishizaki retaping his ribs by request of the ever-so-gracious Karen. "The second you punch me in the stomach, Sakura, I'm going to be puking blood." With that visual stuck in her head, Sakura was visibly uncomfortable with going ahead into the next round. "I don't want to fight you if you're hurt, Batsu. But you're not going to drop out either, are you?" "Hell no. That's what I thought." Sakura mumbled with a frown, running a hand through her short brown hair. "Would you hate me if?" "I won't be mad if you fight me like you'd fight anyone else," Batsu said, cutting her off from asking the question. Of course he wouldn't care. It was a damn fighting tournament. What was she supposed to do? It was obvious. "I'm not laying down for you out there either. You're legit going to have to stop me," he told her as Karen's large butler finished heavily taping his ribs back up. "Ah, thanks a lot," Ishizaki nodded to him before retaking his seat. Instead of putting his shirt back on, Batsu tied it around his waist. Everyone left in the tournament with the exception of one guy were his friends. Everyone already knew he was injured and he'd need to be able to move as freely as possible as he was. No need to hide it. Even with the reassurance, Sakura was still kind of concerned. It was one thing to fight if Batsu was actually healthy. He most assuredly was not healthy if the good half-inch thick layer of tape around his torso was any indication. "Does anyone have a marker?" Batsu asked as he tried to find a comfortable way to sit in his seat with busted-up ribs, "Because I think I want to draw a bullseye on my stomach just to be funny for the next round." XXX. With Naruto, arena lobby. "Sorry. I got dragged out of bed at first light this morning, there's no way you were done with your morning training by then to get here anyway. Naruto desperately defended over the mobile phone in his hand. His frantic motion up and down the hall getting others out there to look at him strangely as he continued to speak. Come on, you can't really be that mad, can you, Ibuki-chan? You're damn right I'm mad, you jerk. Ibuki responded loudly enough through the phone for Naruto to hold it away from his ear. I've always wanted to see Tokyo, and you and Sakura-chan just take off a day from school without saying anything. No warning at all to anyone. I wanted to go too, she finished, her voice making Naruto think that he could see the pout on her face from there. We would have had to pull another trick on your sensei. A grin came to Naruto's face as he finally stopped moving to lean against a wall. And really, we've just been standing in lines and fighting all day. You would have been bored unless you split up from us. Sigh, I guess they're always next time. I've got to go, I'm almost close to getting back to my village, and I can't let them see the phone. At least bring me something back, and I'll see you guys in school on Monday. Don't get yourself put into the hospital, alright? Hearing the sound of Ibuki ending the phone conversation got Naruto to put his own phone up and sigh. I wouldn't go by choice anyway, I hate hospitals. His thoughts then turned to the semi-finals of the tournament. As expected, there weren't many people here that were notable. Balrog was an anomaly and his win over the Great Oni in the preliminary round was the only other example he could think of. In the finals I'm going to fight either Sakura-chan or Batsu. For real this time. It was sort of exciting, fighting his friends with something actually on the line this time. Not just a spar for once. I believe that you are getting ahead of yourself. A turn of his head saw Naruto looking at Karen as she walked down the hall towards him, proper as ever and ignoring the people around her until she stood directly in front of him. You still have to win your semifinal bout before you can think of defeating one of your friends. Well, I'm excited, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. I haven't been this excited to fight in a long time, come to think of it. I want to see just what my friends have really got. Pointing a stern finger right in Naruto's face, Karen spoke again, completely serious. Like I said before, you need to worry about your semifinal bout first and foremost. Your opponent is extremely dangerous, and he received a bye through the quarterfinals after the victor of the first round match that would have faced him bowed out due to injury. He is far more rested than you are as well. Naruto grabbed Karen's hand to get it out of his face and flexed his other arm at her. Hey, if you think that I'll get tired just like that then you're crazy. Don't worry. You didn't see his first round match because you ran off to get Batsu medical supplies after winning your own fight, Karen said with a touch of concern in her brown eyes that was difficult to miss. But just like that she squashed it. And launched into an explanation. What do you know about professional wrestling? I beat that Oni guy in the prelims, Naruto said, dredging up the memory of the very showy man. But did that question mean that his next opponent was another wrestler? It had to be if Karen was bringing it up, so, I'm fighting a wrestler again. Not just that. You will be fighting the greatest wrestler in all of Russia, Karen informed him with a hollow look in her eyes, a national hero. A walking tank. A monster of a man. With a sigh, Karen spoke again, looking like what she had to say was very difficult for her. Naruto-san, you have my express permission to surrender during the next round. A look of shock came over Naruto's face. That was one thing he had never expected to hear, surrender. Are you kidding me? I haven't even seen the guy yet, and you're telling me that you want me to just quit. It would be better if you did if things seem hopeless, Karen said abruptly, running a hand through her curls to place them behind her shoulders. I do not need to see my investment crushed to pulp by some hulking brute just for this tournament. There will be other chances in the future to prove your strength and skill. You can walk away without losing anything. Whoa, 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 whoa. Naruto said, waving his hands in front of him rapidly to bring Karen's reasoning to a close. So, you can send me off to fight a killer sumo wrestler in a bathhouse, but I can't fight this Russian guy. What's with the big change of heart? Like I said, Karen remarked, her eyes panning down to Naruto's hold on her wrist where she removed it with her other hand. You didn't see his first round match. Flashback, first round. Ow, Batsu complained, still laying on the floor in front of the row of chairs occupied by the others. Where's Naruto? Hasn't he been to Tokyo enough to know where the nearest store that sells medical stuff is? Instead of being worried about that, Karen crossed her arms over her chest as one of the fighters for the next match walked into the ring. If he is a savvy fighter, he should return as quickly as possible to watch the rest of his opponents that he may wind up facing. He'll be back, Sakura said with full confidence. Naruto didn't send one of his clones, because they tend to kind of go off and do dumb stuff when he gives them money to buy things like this. They'll spend it on themselves, and Naruto doesn't like technically stealing, since when his clones dispel, the money the clone had in their pocket will dispel too. Karen glanced over at Sakura momentarily before looking back down into the ring with an uninterested look in her eyes. Well. You certainly know quite a bit about my employee. A shrug came from Sakura, not really seeing anything notable about it. Of course she'd know that much after being around him as close as they were for well over 3 years, yeah. He was my best friend first, not your worker. Of course I know more about him than you. You don't even consider yourself a friend of his. That made Karen bite the inside of her lip as she wanted to respond and dispute that point, but her damn pride. Naruto had to hound her in private to get her to say it. There was no way she was just going to come out and say that they were friends with no prodding. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the final first round match of the evening. Introducing first, from Seoul, South Korea. He stands 6 feet 1 inches tall, and weighs in at 184 pounds, Chandu-san. A man with a white taekwondo uniform on and a long ponytail lifted his arm in acknowledgement of the announcer calling out his name as he stood in front of a man that was crouched down with a red cape concealing his entire body as he kept his head down. His opponent, straight from his training in Siberia. He stands 7 feet tall and weighs in at 254 pounds. This is the Red Cyclone of Russia, Zangief. The man threw off the red cape concealing his body to reveal his entire frame to everyone in view. He had brown hair in a mohawk and a goatee beard, as well as a large patch of hair on his chest. Scars littered his body in numerous places, and he wore red wrestling tights with a yellow studded belt around his waist, red boots, and red wristbands. All in all, he cut a very intimidating figure. It didn't seem to matter to Chan though, as he moved right at Zangief and delivered a leaping axe kick that Zangief blocked before throwing him away. The agile taekwondo fighter landed on his feet however and went right back in at Zangief, throwing kicks at the bulky frame of the Russian wrestler. One of the kicks happened to be caught though, and Zangief pulled him in for a stomach-rattling punch that fully doubled him over. Taking this chance, Zangief grabbed his opponent around the waist and held him upside down before jumping at least 10 feet off of the ground, spinning in the air before landing on the ground in a sitting position, slamming Chan upside down headfirst. Cheering raucously, the crowd roared as Zangief tossed Chan's limp body aside and stood up, lifting his arms into the air to point at the sky and yell loudly at his victory. It was clearly his win because Chan was not moving an inch. And Zangief simply overwhelms Chan with his massive signature spinning piledriver. One move, ladies and gentlemen, that's all it took. We can only hope that Chan is alright, but advancing to the next round of fights, the Red Cyclone, Zangief. Expect nothing less from the most powerful man in Russia. Zangief flexed to the crowd as they cheered his name, and the EMTs took Chan away on a stretcher to hurry him out of the arena. End flashback. Chandu-san was not alright, Karen said, putting a hand on the back of Naruto's neck, right where she could feel his vertebrae. He has since been pronounced by doctors as paralyzed. An attack of that nature on a concrete floor, there was no give. I am not willing to take such a risk with you. Taking a moment to remove Karen's hand from the back of his neck, Naruto just held it and gave the back of her hand a few firm pats. I'm not going to get paralyzed, Karen. He had been pile-driven off of a cliff headfirst into rocks before and lived through it. And aside from that, Zangief had to grab him first, so don't you worry one bit, boss lady. He then realized that something wasn't happening. Where's Shibazaki? Normally other times when I've tried to lay a hand on you he has a heart attack at me. Karen smirked at Naruto as he returned her hand to her. I sent him to the vendor area to request the use of their equipment to feed me. While I am not that hungry, I did need to find a moment to speak to you alone. This was the easiest way to ensure that. Trying to get me alone without your butler looking over your shoulder. Amusement crept into Naruto's voice as he smirked along with his fellow blonde. I've got to be rubbing off on you somehow, because that seems like a me kind of move. Karen leaned in close towards Naruto, getting him to lean back a bit so that their faces didn't touch. The halls were beginning to clean out for the end of intermission as no one wanted to miss the semi-final round, leaving Naruto and Karen more and more alone. You say that as if you've taught me how to be devious. That could not be further from the truth. I was already devious long before you and I ever met, she finished in whisper. I already knew that, Naruto whispered right back, feeling kind of awkward at the proximity the two of them were sharing at the moment. If he wasn't so terrified of how much evil he was quite certain was kept in Karen's female body, he might have been a bit flustered by how close the two of them were. If you're going to kiss me for good luck, you should just go ahead and do it now. An airy laugh came from Karen before she backed away from Naruto and placed her hands saucily on her hips. I do not kiss commoners, Naruto-san. Keep that dream though. More like a nightmare, but he wasn't about to say that out loud and wreck any goodwill between them. Very good. I've found you fairly easily. Both Naruto and Karen turned to see a man flanked by many beautiful women following his every move, and Karen had to admit that he was an extremely attractive man. Definitely not a commoner from the looks of his suit, or his long flowing brown hair kept in a neat ponytail with not a stray hair in sight. Is there some way that we can help you? Karen said to the man as he got closer, do you have some kind of business with us? The man looked at Naruto with a bit of disdain. Now that I've seen him up close, he's rather unattractive. What are those marks on his face? He looks like a disgusting thug. With that, he chose to turn his attention to Karen, who was obviously beautiful and the one he would rather be conversing with. It didn't matter as long as the message got out. I have business with the young man here. I wish to offer him a job of sorts. I simply need to see more of what he is capable of in order to finalize whether or not I will require his services. And you are? Karen asked, raising a delicate eyebrow at how the man had not introduced himself. Ah, of course, with a sweeping bow that got his female hanger-ons to swoon at his grace. The man lifted his head up to smile at Karen disarmingly. You may refer to me as Vega. You are quite a charming young woman, Kanzuki Dono. Your family name precedes you, even amongst the nobles in Spain. Hearing her name brought up in a formal manner by a man with proper foreign conditioning, Karen returned Vega's bow and stood back up. You have an issue you would like to bring up to Naruto-san. Is this true? And it pays, correct? She added, thinking it thoughtful to try and broker a good price for Naruto. For some reason, Naruto was stockpiling money and this could greatly help with that if the man paid well. Of course, Vega said with a pleasant smile on his face, I can assure you that he will be compensated very well for his assistance. A nod came from Karen before she turned to Naruto, who hadn't spoken a word since Vega's arrival. What do you think, Na? She stopped her question when she saw a rather hard, scrutinizing look in Naruto's eyes as he stared at Vega. Naruto-san. It didn't get Naruto to break his stare away from Vega, as if he was trying to find something by looking into the man's eyes, and he apparently found what he was looking for when he narrowed his own eyes and moved slightly in front of Karen in a bit of a protective manner. I don't want to hear your offer. I'm not interested. Are you sure? Vega said, but this second offer only got Naruto to bristle in a harsher manner. He could see the darkness behind Vega's seemingly harmless eyes. The boy is quite perceptive. I guess he has to have some worthwhile qualities to make up for such an unsightly appearance. There's so much bloodlust in his eyes, Naruto thought. From the moment Vega got a good look at his face, Naruto could feel the killing intent flooding the hallway. It was thick, but he had felt worse before. This man had clearly taken many lives though. It was as if Naruto could still see the blood on his well-kept hands as they spoke. I'm completely sure. I don't need to hear anything. Karen pays me more than enough. I'm not looking for another person to work for right now. Vega nodded stiffly, seemingly in understanding before turning around and walking away, the women following him. I see. Well, thank you for your time, Kanzuki Dono. Uzumaki-san. Even with his hard-soled shoes, his footsteps never made a sound. That was crazy. He was skilled. So what in the world did he want Naruto's help for? He seemed capable enough all on his own. Why did you turn that man down so abruptly? Karen asked him, rather heatedly as Vega returned to the main arena. Her foot was tapping the floor impatiently for his answer. He was well connected. I could clearly see that much. He had incredible resources, and would have paid you handsomely. Is your aim not to make a large sum of money? I'm not taking anyone's blood money, Naruto said, still glaring down the hall where Vega had long since departed. That guy, he had the eyes and the body language of a killer. Since coming to Japan, Naruto could see marked differences in how people carried themselves from people in Konohagakure. It was rare to see anyone carry themselves with a modicum of combat etiquette, let alone the tense assassin-like manner that Vega moved with. It seemed like his every motion could have been transitioned into a lethal attack. Whatever he wanted me to do, it wouldn't have been worth it. What about your goal? Karen asserted, trying to appeal to the side of Naruto that wished for financial security, for whatever reason he needed it for. How is turning down a lucrative opportunity going to help you? Once again, Naruto didn't budge on the matter. That guy's vibe, I don't like him. There's something really messed up about him past that pretty boy face of his. I don't work for people I don't like. He then addressed the silent issue that Karen's skeptical eyes were asking him. Yes, that means I kind of like you. You're not a bad person. Oh, a compliment. How nice. But that wasn't really the point of conversation from Karen's point of view. So Naruto just flat out didn't like or trust anything about Vega. That was his right as his own agent to line up his own work, but still, apparently you need my money to help you, so why do you not simply tell me now what you need it for? There is no need to cause an incident like this to occur again by mistake. What are you searching for? I can't tell you. And why not? Because you'd never believe me, Naruto said. No one would. And I don't need anyone thinking I'm crazy. So this was something he hadn't even told Sakura, his best friend, about. If that were the case, then trying to strong-arm it out of him by being bossy wasn't going to work for a single moment as far as Karen went. There truly was something strange about Naruto that went beyond his fighting abilities. The two had something of a standoff before Karen sighed and waved the whole thing off. Honestly, you say I need to be about yourself, Naruto-san. There isn't much that you could say to me at this point that would cause too much of a stir with me. I am quite open-minded and level-headed, if I do say so myself. She sounded as if she were bragging, but there was something more behind it. Just know that whenever you wish to bear your secret ambition to me, I will lend you an ear. Why would you care? Naruto asked in legitimate curiosity towards her intentions. Who knows? It could serve to be just as interesting as I figure you yourself to be. Wow, what a cryptic answer. If Naruto wanted such a vague answer from Karen, he wouldn't have asked the question in the first place. Now, shall we return to our seats? Shibazaki should be finished preparing my meal soon. Naruto just stared after her as she started walking back down the hallway corridor to return to the appropriate arena entrance before deciding to just follow after her. Thinking about what exactly was going on in a wealthy girl's head was just going to sidetrack and confuse him. He had a fight to prepare for, and his friends were on deck for their own bout in just a matter of minutes. XXX. A few minutes later, main arena. A tentative-looking Sakura stood in the middle of the ring facing off against a calm-looking Batsu, though he still had his uniform top tied around his waist to reveal the bandages adorning his torso. His face slightly twisted in a scowl when he could see Sakura's apprehension from her body language. Are you still on about me fighting hurt? Batsu said with a lot of irritation. I'm fine with it, mostly. So just get over it. I don't fight to hurt people. Just to win, Sakura replied with conviction in her eyes. I can't win without making your wounds worse. Way worse. Then just do it and stop bellyaching about it, Batsu said, standing in a ready stance with his fists clenched, because I'm not going to take it easy on you. If you aren't going to quit, then you'd better put me down hard and in a hurry. The first semi-final match involves two high school students from Aohura City and they seem to know each other quite well. How interesting. It is Kasagano Sakura against Ikimonji Batsu. Winner heads to the final round. Let's see who's the strongest student. If you won't attack me, I'll attack you. Batsu said, holding out his left fist before hitting it with his right as if he were striking a match. Ki-ident Guts Bullet. Wasting no time, Batsu fired off his specific ki attack at Sakura, forcing her to dodge it and beginning the battle in earnest as he tried to close the distance, using the previous attack as a feint to give him a chance to get closer. Sakura was still hesitant to use a special attack of her own in retaliation. And this actually allowed the far slower due to his injury Batsu to get close and begin trading strikes with her. The wild swinging kicks of Batsu didn't touch Sakura, but she wasn't countering. Outmaneuvering him was a definite possibility, but her immediate instinct when getting past the guard of someone bigger than her was to deliver punishment to the body. Her hesitance to do so in this instance caused Batsu to take advantage of her, pulling her punches, making her pay in the process. Mikazuki Karo Crescent Moon Kick. Sakura felt pain rip through her own torso as Batsu delivered a deep, driving kick to her body that sent her fumbling and rolling back over the floor. Of course, the full extension of his body that was required for the move to be effective caused Batsu to drop to his knees, clutching his stomach. "Stop fighting sloppy, Sakura," he said, "even if I'm hurt I can still beat you to a pulp, damn it." Feeling her blood pumping at being hit with such a clean shot, Sakura got back up and saw Batsu himself on his knees. And just like that, her resolve to fight back started slipping away again. Pity from an opponent, especially someone close to him, pissed Batsu off, and this was no exception as he got right back up to his feet and got back into his fighting stance. "Come on already. Naruto says that you're good, well stop acting like a coward and fight me," he shouted, charging at her again. Hadoken, Surge Fist. Sakura fired a wild and fast flashing Hadoken at Batsu, hoping that the weak but fast attack would put him down without too much harm, but Batsu just jumped over it and made her pay for her errant miss. Ryu Saikuro, Falling Star Kick. Falling from the sky, Batsu drove another stiff kick into Sakura, actually hitting her hard enough to cause friction sparks as she went flying back again. The crowd collectively let out an "ooh" as her body crashed into the sturdy barrier separating the crowd from the fighting area. "If you don't fight back, you're the one that's really gonna to get hurt." XXX. In the stands, Naruto flinched when the sound of Sakura's body hitting the barrier sounded out through the arena. "Come on Sakura-chan. Even I know that when you've got someone hurt, you've got to finish the job," he said quietly from his seat next to Karen. Her butlers, due to Shibazaki's previous absence, wound up sitting on her right side while she had Naruto to her left, much to Shibazaki's chagrin. The two seemed to be getting along very well though, focusing on the fight before them. "She should be more aggressive than this. When we fought she was sharper. Her form was very unclean, but this is completely different altogether. It seems like she does not even wish to hit him. She's too scared she'll hurt him worse." "That is foolish," Karen bluntly stated, seeing her rival in a lesser light with the revelation from Naruto. If he was healthy, she would be attempting to render him to a similar state of injury regardless. The way things are now, the only thing that has changed is that the job is already halfway done. She's too soft to win a real fight. As much as Naruto wanted to defend Sakura's good-natured heart, there was a time and a place for it, and if Batsu was stubborn enough to fight she should have flat-out torched him. Naruto could see why Batsu wanted to keep fighting as he would have done so himself. "Sakura-chan, if you lose without fighting him back I'm gonna make your life a living hell when we get home. You can count on that, Datbeo." XXX. In the ring, Sakura vs. Batsu. Naruto's voice was very distinct, and when he wanted someone to hear something there was no amount of background noise possible to keep his voice muffled. Sakura clearly heard Naruto's threat and knew that he would never harm her, but that wasn't the kind of hell that she was well aware that he could bring her. Embarrassing prank booby traps, and it would be unbearable because he was well aware of her entire daily schedule and anywhere she could go to try and hide from him. "Take him seriously, damn it." Naruto shouted down at her again, "You're disrespecting Batsu like this. He wants your best. He doesn't want you to pity him. How would you feel if that was you?" "She would be pissed," was the answer. If she was still able to stand, if she insisted on fighting, and her opponent didn't give her the time of day in a competition, she would go at the bastard tooth and nail to let him know what a huge mistake it was to underestimate her. Apparently Batsu felt the same way, because he had delivered a few nasty attacks while her guard had been down. "Okay, Batsu," Sakura said aloud as she stood back up and walked away from the barricade she had crashed into, no holding back anymore. "If this is what you want, this is what you're going to get." A scoff came from Batsu as he moved his hands away from soothing his injured ribs to getting back into a defensible fighting stance. "Finally. This way, when I beat you I can say I'm that much better than you, bad physical condition or not." He still knew in his mind that he could win. All he needed was to string together a good combination of moves. His body could take the pain that a good chain of attacks would give him. Hadoken, Surge Fist. Sakura fired another wild Hadoken, sacrificing power and control for speed and range, but missed wide. It let her get close enough to fight hand to hand though, letting her start off with a low front sweep that Batsu avoided by lifting his leg up. Sakura followed up with a spinning back fist that he ducked, but it put stress on his ribs to do so, and Sakura's spinning combination was not complete as she spun through for a third time to land a rather solid low-aimed kick that battered his right side, even with his guard up to protect himself. A small pained grunt came from Batsu as he shoved her leg away and stood up straight, now blocking a flurry of punches coming from Sakura before shoving her back and trying to unleash a harsh rushing uppercut that missed, again causing incredible pain to his body due to the full extension required by his body to put his full force behind the move. Sakura didn't pity him this time and delivered a side kick to his body, picking at the weak point instead of trying to avoid a fight altogether. Stumbling back, Batsu's knees shook and he fought to keep them from giving out on him. This was what he had asked for, Sakura not taking it easy on him, so there wasn't any way he could complain about it. Sakura let out a yell of effort as she struck home with a direct, straight punch that got Batsu right in the ribs. However, she found that she couldn't pull her hand away and looked at Batsu's face to find him smirking at her painfully. Of course it was going to be an attack to the ribs. Any half-assed schlub that fancied themselves a fighter of any real value would have gone for that big white taped opening at any and every opportunity. There wasn't any way around it. So all he could do was prepare accordingly. All I do is get into fights where I'm guaranteed to get the crap beat out of me, he said, tightening his grip on Sakura's arm before lifting his leg to give one authoritative big boot to her face that freed her from his grip but knocked her down and away. Do you really think I don't know how to take a punch like that? Sakura lay down on the ground for a moment, holding the shoulder of the arm Batsu had held onto before kicking her away. It felt almost like she had dislocated her shoulder, but she could still move it, so that was not the case. She counted herself lucky to be awake after that, as she had seen Batsu throw a racing motorcycle like a shot put before, and that kick to her head was underpowered due to his injury. That was her only reasoning as to how she was not knocked unconscious by that clutch counterattack. She got up and growled to herself as she charged towards Batsu again and attacked, Shunpukyaku, twirling gale kick. Multiple 360 rotations went into Sakura's jumping spin kick that merely bounced off of Batsu's guard and let her drift into the air, almost like a pinwheel as she flew over his head and followed up with a falling punch that got through and smashed him right in the face. Blood sprayed from Batsu's mouth onto the ground as his head snapped down and to the side from the shot, but he turned back and retaliated with an attempted haymaker of his own that Sakura ducked under. Fuck, Batsu thought to himself as Sakura was in a full crouch underneath his fist and entire arm. I overextended. I was too wild. This ought to fix you, Sakura shouted before delivering two low spinning kicks that bashed Batsu in his ribs. Before he could fully double over and hold his torso, Sakura hit him with a third kick, a high front kick to the face that knocked him into the air. Flipping above him, Sakura used a two-handed smash that sent him back to the ground with her landing flawlessly in a double stomp right on Batsu's ribs again. Haru Ranmant, turbulent pride of spring. Aahhhh. Batsu cried out loudly, with all of Sakura forcing herself right into his torso before blacking out from the pain, going spread eagle on the ground and lying there motionlessly. Sakura stood in her crouch on Batsu's body before falling to the side on her backside and heaving a sigh of exhaustion. I really didn't want to break out my new special combination on you, but you just wouldn't go down, she said to the unconscious young man before standing up from the ground. That's it for that one, everybody. The winner of the match, and proceeding to the final round of the tournament, Kasugano Sakura. Smoothing out her dress as she lifted up one hand in victory, Sakura looked back at Batsu sorrowfully as the EMTs were already there checking him over and loading him up onto a stretcher. He's going to be alright, isn't he? She asked, walking with the doctors for a ways. You broke one of his ribs. But nothing ruptured as far as we can see yet. No internal bleeding coming from his mouth, the main doctor amongst them said. We've got to take him to the hospital though. Hearing that stopped Sakura at a pair of ground-level double doors that would have led to the back of the arena, just looking at the doors in shock. Oh no, Sakura said, feeling lower than the floor. This was what she didn't want. She didn't want to hurt a friend and now she had sent one to the hospital. Such was the nature of rule-free full-contact fighting. She turned around and saw that Naruto had hustled his way through the stands to see Batsu off as well and immediately ran towards him to wrap her arms around him tightly. Naruto, I didn't mean to do that to him. I know, Naruto replied, just hoping that she wouldn't start crying on him. The last thing he needed and something he had no idea on how to handle was how to console a crying girl. And he was up next to fight. He knew he couldn't calm her down by then if she wound up losing it. Look, Batsu knew what he was doing when he came down for this round. You didn't do anything wrong. You went after the weak spot. That's how you win a fight. It's okay, Sakura-chan. She knew that. It didn't sit easily with her though regardless. Sakura pouted, though Naruto couldn't see it from the position of her head buried in his shoulder and chest. I know how to win a fight. I don't want to hurt my friends though. Batsu's going to be fine. He's a tough bastard, Naruto asserted, patting her on the back. Now come on. Stop being all emotional and girly. My fight's next, and I can't be all full of estrogen and touchy feelings when I'm trying to crack skulls. Pulling away from the hug, Sakura thumped Naruto in the chest with a small smile on her face. I'm girly because I'm a girl, stupid, she remarked before sighing a bit. Thanks for that though. So, you won't be too angry when I beat you, will you? The sound of someone loudly clearing their throat got both Naruto and Sakura to turn around to see Karen standing there with her hands on her hips. Yes, Karen-san. We were talking. Talking is what she calls it. Karen thought to herself with a twitching eyebrow before squashing that thought. While you two were having a moment, Naruto-san's opponent entered the ring. So if you're done holding him up with your little near breakdown, she trailed off before smirking, unless you would like to cry on his shoulder some more, little girl. Damn it, he could damn near see the electricity flying between their eyes at each other at that point. Naruto let out a groan and just started walking to the ring. He was not about to stand there and break up a catfight between two girls that could potentially beat him unconscious right before a match just for getting in the way. Don't beat each other up, please, he remarked before walking back to the barrier and hopping over it to enter the ring. Now it's time for the second semifinal match of the evening. It's the 16-year-old self-professed ninja, the part-time soldier with a chip on his shoulder, Uzumaki Naruto. And he's taking on Russia's greatest athlete, the most dangerous grappler on the face of the planet, Zangief. This is a real David vs. Goliath matchup. I'll let you go ahead and guess who's who. It had been a while since Naruto had to look directly up at someone to see their face. Zangief stood more than a full head over him and was at least twice as wide. Wow, I didn't know you could get muscles there, he said, almost meekly at the sheer size of his opponent. Naruto was just utterly dwarfed. Well, whatever. After getting the chance to get into the ring with the best ninja in the world and getting your ass kicked, I'll give you the chance to shake my hand. How does that sound? Naruto said, trying to muster some bravado and braze to up his own fighting spirit. Zangief chuckled down at Naruto and ruffled his hair, unknowingly almost popping Naruto's neck from the strength in his very large arms. Let's see just what you've got to offer, little one. Naruto felt Zangief's grip begin to tighten and remembered that Zangief was a wrestler and that this was not good. The powerful Russian lifted Naruto up, palming his head like a basketball, but Naruto wrapped his arms and legs around his arm like a leech, not willing to be thrown. What do you think you're doing? Let go. No. Screw off. Naruto shouted back at him, attaching himself with chakra as Zangief tried his best to shake Naruto off for a throw or a slam. Zangief got upset and lifted his arm to slam it into the ground, Naruto and all, but that was what it took for Naruto to eventually let go, swinging himself around Zangief's arm like a metal bar and dropkicking him right in the face before flipping away and gaining some distance. I've got to stay fast or this guy'll kill me if he can grab me. With a mighty yell, Zangief jumped through the air at Naruto, firing a dropkick of his own that Naruto rolled out of the way of. This guy was too big to try and test with a punch. Kicking him in the head earlier felt like he had just booted a log. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 12 Naruto clones manifested out of smoke and dove at Zangief to pin him down, but they might as well have just been ragdolls from the way that Zangief threw them away into each other and kicked them off when they tried to grab his legs. Are you kidding me? Tell me I'm not seeing double, or dozen in this case. Uzumaki Naruto just cloned himself on command. Is he even human? It bought Naruto enough time to land a flipping axe kick, but Zangief's core was like iron and he grabbed a hold of Naruto's leg after its heel smashed into him. Naruto could feel a pressure directly on his kneecap and realized that he was a hair's breadth away from getting his leg broken. Naruto made more clones that were quick to leap to their creator's defense, brazenly pummeling Zangief's face and tugging at his arms to free Naruto before something terrible happened. The combination of the beating and the incessant pestering of the clones freed Naruto as several of them dragged Naruto away. In a burst of angry strength, Zangief stood up, throwing away Kage Bunshin, one in each hand, picking up another one and headbutting it into oblivion and punching the last that tried to attack it in the face, turning it to smoke. After disposing of his multiple attackers, he glared at Naruto and his 7 remaining clones, growling as a blood pulsed out of a throbbing rage vein in his forehead. The clones looked at each other warily, but they all had Naruto's original grit to fight. Well, there was one surefire way that they could all break a man's spirit for fighting, and since Zangief already seemed to be spurting blood from a vein in his head, it probably wouldn't even take this much to finish the job, so to speak. Okay, let's finish this, Naruto shouted as his clones surrounded Zangief like a wild animal. Making hand seal, no man alive can stand up to this move. Harem no jutsu, harem jutsu. Smoke came and went to reveal that in the place of Naruto and his clones were multiple beautiful blonde women that were sorely lacking clothing, Smoke not even concealing their modesty or lack thereof. Hello, Zangief-sama. They all cried in unison as they hung all over the man. XXX. In the stands, Honda had to cover his own nose to keep blood from flying out of it upon the sight of what was below in the ring. Hopefully no one saw him, but he felt safe since most of the guys in the place were either cheering wildly or suffering the same physical affliction as him at the moment. What on earth? What the hell kind of technique is that? I might kill him, Sakura said stiffly, glaring down at the ring where her friend was making a perverted ass of himself. He had somehow neglected to ever use that world-beating technique in her presence ever. Luckily for him, I might really kill him this time. I don't think I can hit him enough to make him realize how messed up this is. I am sure there is a proper number somewhere, Karen said, gritting her own teeth at the sight of the harem jutsu. Yes. A very high number. Would it have been wrong of her to think of docking Naruto's wages for his actions? XXX. In the ring, Naruto vs. Zangief. Sadly, having nearly a dozen nude women hanging off of him did not have the desired and practiced effect on Zangief that Naruto figured it would. Instead of going red in the face and ejecting most of his lifeblood through his nasal passages the way many before him had done, Zangief's face twisted in anger. Raw. Double lariat. Extending his arms to the side, Zangief spun around at a high speed and blasted the transformed clones and the original away violently with clotheslines and spinning backfists. What kind of fighting technique is that? Turning oneself into a whore. He spat hatefully on the ground before running at Naruto, who was sitting up. What are you, gay? Naruto shouted from his backside, blood streaming from his own nose due to being hit by Zangief's pole-like arms. He got a good view of the man charging towards him and made a few more hand seals before spitting his next attack at him. Hey, whatever floats your boat, big guy. Chakura Tenki shot Chakra Spitfire. Banishing flat. Zangief's right hand glowed green and he simply slapped Naruto's Spitfire attack away, not stopping his charge and reaching Naruto by the time he had gotten back to his feet. He just slapped it away. Naruto cried in disbelief. No one just knocked his jutsu away like it was a baseball, it should have done something. What was that green stuff? Zangief's ki. But Naruto then sharply exhaled when Zangief slammed a knee right into his belly. Grabbing the doubled over Naruto around the waist, Zangief flipped him up onto his shoulders and jumped into the air, slamming Naruto directly onto the ground, head, neck, and back first, flying powerbomb. This is what real fighting is all about. He shouted to the crowd with spittle flying as he stood on Naruto's chest with one foot and lifted his arm into the air victoriously, not cheap light tricks or misdirection. Crush your opponent and show your superiority with no shadow of doubt to the outcome. The pain from being powerbombed on the concrete overwhelmed Naruto's senses as he almost couldn't feel himself trying to move for a bit. When he got feeling back in his limbs though, he wasn't about to let this meathead just step on him like he was a bug. Naruto clutched at Zangief's boot with one hand as he formed a blue sphere of rapidly moving energy in his other hand, Rasengan, spiraling sphere. Zangief let out an intense howl of pain when Naruto slammed the Rasengan into the side of his knee, the force of which forced Zangief to do a full flip through the air thrice speedily before landing on his face on the concrete floor. Naruto quickly crawled and then stood up to run away now that he had his opening and turned back to see Zangief looking at him from his place belly down on the ground, eyes nearly bulging out of his head in either agony or fury as he rolled over and sat up, his right leg clearly dislocated at the knee. "That's got to be it," Naruto said to himself mentally, spitting his own blood out as he stared at the downed Zangief as if telling him to give up. But when Zangief painstakingly lined his own leg up and slammed his hands against both sides of it to audibly pop it back into place, he had to fight back the urge to gulp. "Fuck," Naruto thought, seeing Zangief beginning to stand back up. "Fine. I'll just knock you out now then." He created 5 clones that surrounded Zangief again as he stood up, with all of the Narutos attempting a rising kick, but it was like trying to kick a small car off of the ground as they barely got Zangief to lift up to his tiptoes. Is he really that strong? Spinning lariat. Another wild, spinning arm attack once again rid Zangief of Naruto's clones, but Naruto himself ducked, retaliating quickly with a hard uppercut to the ribs that got Zangief to grunt from the cleanly landed, technically sound shot. It hurt, but it wasn't enough. "You punch like a girl." That wasn't really much of an insult, especially when it came to the girls that Naruto knew, but an insult was an insult and he didn't take them without responding. So he stomp-kicked at the knee that he knew he had just dislocated moments earlier. An appropriate response. Zangief dropped to one knee, shouting in pain once again before growling and grabbing Naruto around his neck with both hands. The mammoth Russian warrior lifted him off of the ground and began strangling Naruto with his bare hands. "Close your eyes and go to sleep, little one." Naruto started kicking away wildly, but Zangief's reach was scary and Naruto could barely reach his body with the tip of his toes as he tried in vain to pry his opponent's hands away from his throat. He's so strong. It's like Super Bushy Brows Sensei's grip. Naruto couldn't even make choking or coughing noises as his blood buildup started turning the whites of his eyes red as blood vessels were feeling the strain due to the blood pressure building in his head. He didn't want to do something like this in a fighting tournament, but he wasn't about to be strangled to death in the middle of an arena for a bunch of bloodthirsty people. Naruto stopped trying to pry Zangief's grip free as his vision began to blot and darken. He reached for his supply pouch and pulled out 2 kunai that he proceeded to bury deep into Zangief's forearms. Getting stabbed by the black iron blades forced Zangief to drop Naruto to the ground. He stumbled back in surprise and pain, roaring as he tried to pull the stubborn weapons out of his arms. He tossed them onto the ground with a clatter and stomped angrily towards Naruto, who was on his hands and knees, wheezing and choking down sweet oxygen for the first time in over a minute. Zangief stood behind Naruto and pointed both of his fingers into the air with a shout, "For Mother Russia." He then bent down and grabbed Naruto by the back of his waist from behind before bridging his own body back and slamming Naruto's back, head, and neck into the ground. Ultimate. He seamlessly rolled through and picked Naruto back up before slamming his back down across his knee. Atomic. He then flung Naruto into the air and jumped with him, catching him and driving him into the ground with an improvised spinning piledriver. Buster. Oh my goodness. What a terrible display of chain grappling. On the unforgiving concrete floor to boot. I think we've found our winner. There's no way that our young friend is still conscious. There's just no way. Naruto-san. Sakura and Karen's panicked shouts from the stands were more or less drowned out by the loud cheering of the people surrounding them as Zangief got up from the ground, letting Naruto's body lay out in a more natural face-down position from where it had been previously. With a satisfied smirk as he didn't see Naruto budge an inch, he turned towards the crowd and raised his hands in victory. That last attack was cotton soft. Zangief heard Naruto's weak voice and turned towards him to see that he was still down in the same position as before, eyes still closed and everything. He scoffed at Naruto's attempts to taunt him and crossed his arms over his massive chest. "I hear your mouth moving, little man. But I don't see you getting back up to prove it." "Hey, fine," Naruto said as his body started to twitch, but he didn't get up. Zangief let out a barking laugh at his expense. Even a few vocal crowd members started telling Naruto to stay down, getting Zangief to laugh even louder. "Don't laugh at me," he said, stirring but still not even beginning to stand up. "You have the heart of a tiger, but the body of a deer, broken by a Siberian bear," Zangief mocked, crouching down to Naruto's level as he started pushing himself up. Stay down. He yelled directly into Naruto's ear. Apparently steroids shrink your brain as much as they shrink your balls, because I already told you that your last move was soft. Zangief kicked at Naruto's body, sending him rolling on the ground, but to his surprise Naruto got up faster this time, his body and clothes covered in the marks of battle. Upon reaching his feet and almost falling back down again, Naruto let out a chuckle and proceeded to flip off Zangief with both hands. A sneer took over Zangief's face and he charged towards Naruto, intent on grabbing the defenseless-looking teen and turning him into a pretzel for his disrespectful remarks and actions. I will crush you and throw you into the wind. From flipping the double bird, Naruto's hands set themselves in hand seals as he started making them again. Crush this, Naruto mumbled, inhaling deeply as the seals continued. Zangief charged up his glowing green hand again to repel whatever energy attack Naruto had planned, but Naruto kept charging it anyway. A blue glow formed in the back of Naruto's throat as he stopped his hand seals on the tiger seal, Choikataiho Chakra Breath Cannon. Instead of blocking a normal kind of projectile attack, Zangief found his body completely blasted with a steady wave of millions of thin, spraying chakra needles from Naruto's mouth that all seemed to stab into him as they bounced off of his body and dissipated into the air. It was clearly not an attack with all-encompassing range, but whatever its range really was didn't matter much as Zangief was right in Naruto's face and took every little bit of the attack. Zangief yelled until his voice was hoarse at the sudden and shocking sensation of being blasted with raw chakra straight from the source of Naruto's throat until he ran out of breath and let the attack fade. Blood covered the entire front of Zangief's body from his pores instead of from actual wounds as none had been opened. He stood tall for a moment, face still twisted in yell mode until he fell backwards with a great crash onto the ground like a fallen redwood tree. All Naruto did was stand in place, panting and eyeing the downed Russian superstar, hoping that he didn't do his best impression of the things in those zombie movies that Sakura liked. To watch in the dark all the time. It seemed to be an eternity before enough seemed to be enough and the announcer decided to call it. He had given Zangief even more time than he had planned on giving Naruto to stand back up, but he couldn't and wouldn't hold out any longer. Can you say upset? Like I said, it was David versus Goliath, and that amazing blast of ki from the little blonde guy was the slingshot and stone that felled the giant. Ladies and gentlemen, your winner and advancing to the final round of the C9 Corporation Grand Ace Fighting Tournament, Uzumaki Naruto. The crowd once again roared, inspired by the crushing finale to the extremely violent match that left both combatants bloodied and battered. Naruto didn't even bother raising his hands up in victory or playing to the crowd, because for a winner, he didn't feel very much like one. You're good, but you're not, Uzumaki Naruto, good. Naruto crouched down painfully in front of the unconscious Zangief and stared at him before blinking and frowning. Okay. You can't shake my hand, but I'll go ahead shake yours. Good fight, he said, grabbing Zangief's closest hand and giving it a hearty shake before standing straight back up and limping off. One more fight. Man, do I even have enough left for the finals? He asked no one in particular as he barely reached the barrier and sat down against it, not caring that the fans were taking that chance to pat him on the shoulders and ruffle his sweaty, grimy, and bloody hair. Hurry up and heal me, you stupid fox. He muttered under his breath, I really think I'm gonna need it. XXX. In the stands, Vega's eyes were coldly locked onto Naruto as he concluded his battle with Zangief. Even with his flock of lovely female companions surrounding him and vying for his attention, they didn't matter to him. He could have more women just as beautiful anywhere he went in the world. No, his concern was on the victor of the last deathmatch. All of that skill and power, and he turned his offer down without hearing him out. What an insult. An insult that Vega's pride wouldn't allow to stand. How dare that ugly peasant slight him and stare at him in the lobby with those spiteful eyes. Eyes, all eyes were to look upon him with admiration, adoration, and jealousy. And all that could have stood if he had just accepted the offer for work. Well, if he wouldn't work he could serve another purpose. His blood could ease Vega's mind. Watching the life drain from the boy's eyes would be equal to obtaining his services in Vega's mind. After all, if one wasn't with Shadaloo they were against them by default. And with that in mind, Vega stood up and walked off to another place. He had someone to see and an arrangement to set up. The final round was of no matter to him. The victor was unimportant. No matter what, Uzumaki Naruto would pay for his transgressions by the end of this evening. Thanks for your listening. I do hope you enjoy. If you guys enjoyed and you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below and turn on the bell notifications. And also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.